Hi, my name is Lillian, and I gave birth in a panic, soaked and shivering on cold stone, because my own mother shoved me into a pool at my brother's wedding. Why? Because I refused to pay $15,000 for his big day. But the worst part wasn't the water. It was realizing no one, not my mother, not my brother, not a single guest, tried to pull me out. They said I was dramatic, emotional, unstable. But I have the footage, the bruises, and the baby who survived it all. You ever wonder what it feels like to be erased from your own family while you're still alive? It was a Tuesday morning, the kind of slow, muggy Georgia morning where even the sunlight felt like it was dragging itself across the sky. I was sitting at my kitchen table, feet swollen, sipping lukewarm chamomile tea that had gone cold before I realized. The baby had started shifting more in recent days, like he knew something was coming. Maybe he did. I clicked open my inbox. The subject line stood out instantly. "You're invited." Not from my brother, not from my mother, from a wedding planner app. No call, no note. Just a cold, automated invitation to my brother Caden's wedding, like a reminder from a dentist's office. Saturday, 6 p.m., formal attire, Glenmont Estates, Savannah. I clicked through twice to make sure it wasn't spam. But there it was, my name typed in, not even fully, just L. Harper. No mention of my pregnancy, no details, no seat request, not even a "we'd love to have you." I stared at the screen, my heart squeezing like it wanted to say something, but couldn't form the words. I wasn't shocked. I'd stopped expecting warmth from my family a long time ago. But something about this, the mechanical precision of it, cut deeper than usual. It wasn't neglect, it was intentional omission. Lyle walked in from the garage, wiping his hands on a rag. "You okay?" he asked, nodding toward my laptop. I didn't answer at first. "It's the invite," I said, "for Caden's wedding." He tilted his head. "Email?" "Automated," I nodded. He sat down beside me slowly. "Do you want to go?" I didn't know how to answer. My instinct screamed no. But deeper inside, something smaller, sadder, whispered that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. Maybe they'd see me. I closed the laptop and whispered, "I have to." That Saturday came faster than expected. The sun was already high when we pulled into the estate. Savannah heat stuck to your clothes like cling wrap. Lyle helped me out of the car gently, holding my elbow as I adjusted to the weight of my belly. The venue was beautiful, I won't lie. Marble fountains, perfectly trimmed hedges, music floating in the air like some overproduced fairy tale. It didn't feel like home. It felt like I was trespassing on someone else's dream. We approached the check-in table near the front arch. A young woman with a headset glanced at us. "Name?" she asked, flipping through laminated name cards. "Lillian and Lyle Harper," I answered. She paused, flipped more. "Ah, yes, table 18. She handed me a name badge that read, Sarah T. My stomach flipped. "Actually," I began. But she was already turning to the next guest. Table 18 was at the far end of the courtyard, near a large white catering tent. From there, you couldn't see the main stage. You could barely hear the music over the hum of the portable AC units set up beside the restrooms. The table had no centerpiece. No candles, no shade. Lyle placed a gentle hand on my back as we reached our seats. They did this on purpose. I didn't argue. I expected it. We sat. Around us, laughter echoed from the center of the venue. Bridesmaids in pastel pinks toasted with champagne flutes. People stopped to greet each other. Hugs and cheek kisses exchanged like currency. No one noticed us. I pulled at the edge of my badge. Sarah T. Not even close to my name. Not even worth checking. I watched Caden pose for pictures near the cake. Celine, his fiancée, looked radiant in a gown that probably cost more than our mortgage. My mother stood a few feet away, beaming, arms folded like a proud executive surveying her empire. I hadn't seen her look at me once. The sun shifted, throwing shadows across the table. I felt the baby roll low in my belly, reminding me that I wasn't just sitting here for me anymore. Lyle leaned down. "Let me grab you some water," Stay put, okay? I nodded. Alone again, I let my fingers trace the crooked letters on the badge. The string lights flickered above me, catching in the corner of my eye. I closed my eyes, inhaling slow. Just a few hours, I whispered. Then I'm free. The music had shifted to something louder, something meant to mask the whispering. I watched the DJ make the change, almost like someone had asked him to turn it up, as if they knew people were starting to murmur, starting to notice me. The way the lights turned away from our table didn't feel accidental either. I rubbed my belly slowly, trying to calm both of us down. Lyle hadn't come back yet with the water, and I could feel a weight building behind me, like a presence waiting to strike. I didn't have to turn. I knew that scent, that measured silence, that breath caught mid-sentence. Come with me, my mother said, voice low but clipped. Just a moment. She didn't wait for me to answer. She was wearing beige. The kind of beige only Southern women of her generation could wear without disappearing. Her pearls, of course, were present, like they always were when she wanted to project composure and control. One hand held a glass of white wine, the other pointed toward the floral arch near the side garden. I followed. We didn't say anything as we passed the tables. No one looked at us. No one dared to, maybe. I counted each step to stay focused. I told myself it was just a conversation, but something in her walk told me this wasn't about family. This was business. Once we were far enough from the guests, somewhere near a tall hedge shaped like a cross, I saw her exhale. She turned to me like a CEO calling in an underperforming assistant. We're $15,000 over budget, she said, like it was weather. Florals, catering, extra guests. You know how these things snowball? I blinked. And? I need you to help cover it. Quietly, she added, taking another sip of wine. I let the silence hang between us, mostly because I didn't trust what might come out of my mouth. Not yet. You didn't include me in any of the planning, I said slowly. I didn't even know the final guest list until yesterday. Her gaze didn't flinch. Your family. Family steps up, especially the ones who live on their own timelines. There it was, the dig about my pregnancy, about the fact that I hadn't waited for her approval, that I hadn't done it the right way. I'm 7 months along, Mom. She clicked her tongue, annoyed. You look fine. We're saving. We've been cutting back for months. This isn't something I can just hand over like it's petty cash. She rolled her eyes. Oh, for heaven's sake, Lillian, don't make a scene. A scene. That's what she feared most. Not harm, not injustice, just noise. You've always been the difficult one, she continued, her voice raising just slightly. Always needing exceptions. Always acting like you're owed something. I stared at her. I didn't move, but inside, something shifted. You're asking me to hand over $15,000, I said, at someone else's wedding, when I wasn't asked to help plan, when I've been seated near a portable toilet. She stepped closer. This isn't about a seat, and you know it. This is about showing support for your brother. By funding his wedding? My voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp. People had started to look now. Not everyone, but enough. My mother smiled tightly, the kind of smile you wear when you're trying to control a fire with your eyes. If you can't support your brother, she said louder, then why are you even here? The air around us grew still. Conversations nearby died out. Someone behind me whispered, "That's her daughter?" Another voice said, "She looks like she works here." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My throat locked up, like my body was trying to keep me from making it worse. But it was already worse. That's when Lyle reappeared, holding a sweating glass of water, his face immediately shifting when he saw me, saw my posture, saw her expression, saw the circle of people pretending not to listen. "Lil," he said. I turned to him, forcing a smile that didn't land anywhere near my eyes. "Can we go back to the table?" He nodded instantly, sliding his arm around me. My mother's voice followed us like a mosquito in the dark. "You're going to regret making this about you," she said, not bothering to lower her tone. We didn't answer. We didn't turn around. I didn't trust myself not to collapse into rage or tears. Either would have given her exactly what she wanted. Back at table 18, the plastic chair felt even more unstable than before. I took the water from Lyle with a quiet, "Thank you," and tried to hold it steady. My hands betrayed me. They trembled just enough that he noticed. "Do we leave?" he asked gently. I shook my head. "Not yet." He didn't argue. The music shifted again, something jazzy and polished. Across the courtyard, Caden and Celine stood near the stage, laughing with her parents. My mother was already back with them, sipping like nothing had happened. The MC tapped the mic, announcing speeches would begin soon. I leaned back in my chair, letting the shadows take me in, letting my eyes drift toward the lights strung over the tables like halos reserved for the chosen. I wasn't one of them. I had never been. "They don't want me here," I whispered. They never did. But this time, I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I just waited. The room darkened gently, as if the air itself knew to quiet. Guests were asked to return to their seats for the video tribute, a celebration of love and legacy, as the MC called it. Lyle and I walked back to our corner table, the one near the industrial fan that buzzed louder than the music. I sat slowly, the weight of my body and everything I had swallowed that evening settling into my spine. He placed a hand on my shoulder, just for a moment. Then he sat beside me, watching my face more than the screen. I tightened my grip on the glass of water still chilled from earlier. It had gathered condensation, and the ring it left on the tablecloth seemed almost ceremonial. I didn't blink as the projector hummed and the first image faded in. Caden, 5 years old, holding a sparkler on our grandmother's porch. The crowd gave a soft collective awe. Next photo, Caden on stage in his school's Christmas pageant. Another image, blowing out candles on a baseball-themed birthday cake. I recognized the red frosting. I had made that cake, but something felt off, like a frame missing its anchor. My fingers curled slightly as each photo slid across the screen. Birthday parties, graduations, award ceremonies. All images I had taken, stored, organized, but I wasn't in a single one. Not a shadow, not a mention, not even in the credits. Then it happened. An image appeared. Caden and I at the hospital when he broke his arm in 7th grade. I had skipped class to sit with him. I remember that photo. Lyle had taken it with my old Nikon. But now, in this version, the image had been cropped. Only Caden remained. My arm, visible in the original, was sliced off at the edge, like an editing accident that wasn't accidental. At the bottom of the screen, a soft gold text read, "Photography, courtesy of Sophia, our beloved cousin." I blinked. Lyle didn't move, but I heard the way his breath caught in his chest. The next few minutes passed like fog. The screen kept rolling. More curated moments, more soft transitions. No Lillian, not once. Flashbacks flooded me without invitation. I remembered holding Caden's hand at the hospital when our grandfather passed. I remembered planning his 13th birthday, when Mom was too busy helping Celine redecorate their beach condo. I remembered creating a photo album for his graduation, every page handwritten, gone, rewritten, as if I had never been there. The guests applauded as the video ended. Some turned toward the head table, some didn't turn at all. One couple sitting nearby leaned closer together. "That's the older sister?" the woman asked, barely whispering. "I didn't even know he had one," the man replied. The applause faded, and Celine walked toward the mic with the confidence of a woman who had never had to beg for belonging. "Thank you to everyone who helped make this night magical," she said, her voice sugar-coated. "To those who stood beside us from the beginning, you know who you are. We love you." She smiled at the audience, not at me. I didn't expect her to say my name, but a part of me still waited for it. Back at the table, I didn't touch the tiny plate of hors d'oeuvres. I didn't look at Lyle. I stared at the linen folds in the napkin, tracing a pattern no one else could see. I felt the baby move again, stronger this time, like he was trying to remind me I wasn't invisible. "I think I finally get it," I said quietly. Lyle leaned in, eyes still soft. Get what? It's not that I don't belong here, I said. It's that I was never meant to. He didn't try to correct me. He knew better than to offer hollow comfort. He just reached for my hand and held it under the table, where no one else could see. The screen at the front of the room faded to black. The guests turned their attention elsewhere, toward dessert trays, toward gossip, toward more Instagram-ready moments. But I sat still, one hand on my belly, the other in Lyle's. He kicked again. I closed my eyes. He won't grow up invisible, I said. Not like this. And this time, I didn't whisper it in shame. The applause had barely faded when the music kicked in again, louder this time, something with too much brass and too little heart. Couples drifted to the dance floor, swaying under the string lights like nothing at all had cracked beneath the surface. Lyle leaned toward me and asked, "You need anything?" I shook my head. My throat felt tight, like it was holding back something heavier than words. He kissed my temple and headed toward the bar. That's when I saw her, my mother, Vera, still in that flawless beige gown, still clutching her wine like it was a crown. Her smile was smaller now, thinner, controlled. She moved through the crowd without effort, like the air parted just enough to let her pass. And then she was at my side again. "We're not done," she said, voice lower than before. "Come with me." She didn't wait for a response. We walked past the fountain and around the corner of the catering tent where the music couldn't quite reach. The generators hummed nearby, masking just enough of our voices to make confrontation possible. She stopped and turned, her expression shifting into something sharper. "You're still making this about yourself?" she asked. "You always find a way to center the attention." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. "I said no," I replied. "That's not changing." She took a step closer. "You've embarrassed me in front of everyone. Caden's guests. My friends. Do you have any idea what they're saying?" I tilted my head slightly. "Maybe they're saying they're proud of me for setting boundaries." Her jaw tensed. "You've made me look like a mother who can't even rely on her daughter." "You don't rely on me. You use me." Her face cracked then, just slightly. The pearls around her neck didn't glint quite as bright in the shadows. "You need to be careful, Lillian," she said softly. "This attitude, this selfishness, it will isolate you." I placed a hand on my stomach. The baby kicked, as if to answer for me. "I'm not isolated. I have a family." "A temporary one," she snapped. "Men leave, children grow up. Then who will you have?" There it was, the kind of truth that slips out when control starts to slip. "That's not a warning," I said. "It's a wish." She blinked. "You hope I fail so it proves you were right about me," I said, voice low but steady. "But I won't. Not for you. Not for anyone." Vera stepped back, just half an inch. But I saw it. The beginning of the unravel. "I'm done apologizing for not being what you wanted," I continued. "You taught me to survive. Now I'm doing it, without you." She didn't respond, not with words. Her lips parted, but no sound came, just breath and fury. I turned to leave. "You'll see," she muttered behind me. "When you fall, no one will catch you." I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. "I don't need to fall," I said, more to myself than to her. "But if I do, I'll rise louder than you ever expected." I walked back through the maze of white chairs and flickering candles, heart pounding. The music had changed again, something slower now, more sentimental, an attempt to manufacture emotion. I made it halfway to our table before I felt a pair of eyes tracking me. Celine stood at the edge of the dance floor, holding her champagne like a trophy. She leaned toward Caden and said something. He looked over, eyebrows raised. "She's finally biting back," Celine said. I could read her lips like a second language. Caden shrugged. "Let her." But Vera didn't watch. Vera was already on her phone, her back turned, voice clipped and efficient. She didn't yell, she didn't plead, she just said a name and then another, then hung up. Something shifted in the air around me, like the moment before a storm, still, too still. The wind had picked up just slightly, carrying with it the scent of overcooked shrimp and wilting hydrangeas. I was making my way toward the restroom when a small boy, no older than 6, darted past a column with a toy truck in one hand. He slowed down when he saw me, paused, studied. His head tilted like he was trying to make sense of something. "Are you one of the workers?" he asked, blinking. "You're not in the pictures." I didn't have time to answer before his mother rushed over, mortified. "Honey, shh, no, she's not. That's rude." She tugged him away with a forced smile. I stood still. My legs were working, my chest was rising and falling, but something in me had stopped. I walked slowly to the restroom, avoiding eye contact with every guest I passed. Inside, I went straight to the furthest stall and locked the door. The baby pressed against my ribs as I lowered myself onto the closed toilet seat, and I cupped my hands over my face. Even a child noticed. Even a child knew I didn't belong. That's how thoroughly they'd scrubbed me out. I took a breath, shaky and sharp. My fingers brushed the curve of my stomach. The baby kicked. One, then twice. He was stronger lately. My body knew how to protect him, even when my heart struggled to protect me. My phone buzzed in my purse, a soft vibration against a crumpled tissue. I reached for it and saw a calendar reminder pop up. Deposit, Glenmont Estate, wedding hold, L. Harper. I stared. That couldn't be right. I scrolled down through the reminder. It had been set months ago. A silent tap from my past. My chest tightened as another memory pushed its way in. It had been over a year ago. Vera had called, frantic and breathless. "Everything's falling apart," she'd said. "The other venue is booked out, and we can't risk losing this one." She was pacing our front porch, pearls still on from church, cell phone clutched like a lifeline. "Can you help us hold the Glenmont Estate? Just for a few days. Use your business account. You're still registered, right?" I remembered her phrasing so clearly. "It'll just be temporary, honey. We'll reimburse you right away, I swear." I hadn't even hesitated. Back then, I was still under the illusion that helping meant something, that showing up earned a kind of credit that could be cashed in for acknowledgement, or better, acceptance. They'd never paid me back, and I'd forgotten all about it. Or maybe I had chosen to forget, the way you swallow a broken truth just to keep the peace. Back outside, the evening had cooled. Candles had been lit on the tables, casting soft light against wine glasses and polished cutlery. I slipped past a group of laughing bridesmaids and found a quiet edge of the lawn where no one was watching. I dialed the Glenmont Estate's main office. The call rang twice before a crisp voice answered. "This is Ruth at Glenmont. How can I help?" "Hi," I said, steadying my voice. "I'm trying to confirm the backup contact on tonight's event, Caden Carter and Celine Monroe." A pause. "Sure." Just a moment. I waited, eyes fixed on a flickering string light overhead. "Yes," Ruth said finally. "Backup listed as Lillian Harper. Original booking was submitted under your name." I closed my eyes. "No issue," I murmured. "Just confirming. Thank you." I ended the call and lowered the phone. They used me, and when I was no longer convenient, they rewrote the story. I didn't cry. Not this time. I didn't shake or spiral or wish for some invisible hand to intervene. For the first time, what I felt wasn't sadness. It was clarity. They'd built this entire day on a lie. On my contribution, my quiet generosity, my erasure. And if I had the power to hold a venue this perfect, then maybe I had more power than they thought. I pocketed the phone, checked my dress for stains, and walked slowly back toward table 18. From a distance, I saw Lyle already seated, watching the crowd with that quiet protector's gaze he always wore when he couldn't control the storm, but he could stand between me and the worst of it. As I reached him, he looked at my face. Something had shifted. He could see it. "What happened?" he asked. I sat down beside him, lifting my water again, this time with steady hands. "They think I'm still quiet," I said softly. His eyes narrowed. "And?" I looked across the courtyard, toward the chandeliers dangling from the oaks, toward my mother's familiar silhouette laughing too loudly with someone I didn't recognize. They're about to learn otherwise. I hadn't even made it 10 steps away from our table before Celine appeared in front of me, like she'd been waiting. Her champagne flute still half full, her posture casually cruel. You could have helped, she said, her voice just low enough to carry weight. But no, you had to make it about you. Again. I stopped, straightened. You should be careful who you erase. Her lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You were never in the picture, sweetheart. She turned without waiting for a response, hips swaying in triumph. I stood still, the words echoing in my chest louder than the band that had just started playing a cover of something peppy and meaningless. Just beyond the dance floor, Caden strolled by, laughing at something one of his friends said. He noticed me, offered a quick glance, then muttered as he passed, "Let her sulk." And that's when Vera appeared. She moved like she always did, deliberately, in full command of her body and space. Her expression was composed, serene, even as her eyes held nothing but disappointment. "You've ruined this day for me," she said without greeting, like she was picking up in the middle of a conversation that had never happened. I stood tall, spine straight. I said no. She raised her hand. Not to hit, but to point, to shame. "You are nothing." Then it happened. She stepped in. One hand pressed against my chest, not hard but sharp. Her palm connected with my body at just the wrong angle. I was off balance already. The heels they'd insisted I wear weren't made for lawn, and the edge of the stone ledge behind me was slick from condensation. My left foot slipped. My arms reached for something that wasn't there. The world tilted, and I fell. The water didn't welcome me. It swallowed me. My dress billowed instantly, dragging me down. I couldn't breathe, couldn't even register the cold before the weight took over. Everything went muffled. Lights above me turned to ribbons, sound drowned in pressure. I opened my eyes underwater, saw shapes and color and darkness, and then I felt it. A sharp, twisting movement deep in my belly. The baby, he was kicking violently now, reacting to the shock. My lungs burned. I needed air. But more than that, I needed to protect him. I clawed upward, dress wrapping around my legs like seaweed. I couldn't tell which direction was up. I had never been more afraid. Suddenly, arms, strong, familiar, Lyle. He pulled me up, one arm around my waist, the other slicing through the water. He kicked us to the edge, yelling before we even surfaced. "Someone help!" "She's pregnant. My wife is pregnant." He dragged me to the pool's edge, lifted me out as much as he could before scrambling up himself and pulling me onto the stone tile. I was coughing, retching, shivering. People stood frozen around us, some gasping, some filming, some doing nothing at all. I heard nothing. Then pain. Low. Deep. Rolling through my lower back like a drumbeat. And then the warm gush. "My water broke," I whispered. Or maybe I screamed. I couldn't tell. Lyle was already kneeling beside me, pressing a towel to my soaked hair, brushing water from my face. His hands shook. "Stay with me," he said. "You're okay. He's okay. We're okay." But I wasn't. The contractions were coming faster now, irregular but undeniable. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. I tried to speak. "I'm not ready." "You don't have to be," he said, gripping my hand tightly. "Just hold on." I closed my eyes. Everything throbbed. Voices around me blended into static. Someone was shouting about calling the police. Another voice yelled, "Did she fall? Did she jump?" "No," Lyle barked. "She was pushed." Paramedics arrived fast. Questions rained down. How far along? How long underwater? How many minutes since the water broke? They checked my pulse. Hooked up monitors. One of them held a portable fetal Doppler to my belly. "Heartbeat's strong," she said, "but we need to move now." They lifted me onto a stretcher. Lyle stayed glued to my side. I barely noticed them wheeling me across the lawn, past the startled guests, past the fairy lights and champagne flutes and paper-thin smiles. As they loaded me into the ambulance, I turned my head one last time. The wedding was still happening. The music hadn't stopped. People were still drinking, still pretending. That's when it hit me. This glittering, smiling lie was where they tried to end me. I moved my hand to my belly. But he's coming anyway. The light in the hospital room was soft, almost too gentle for what I was feeling. It crept in through the half-closed blinds, casting long shadows across the foot of the bed where my legs were tucked under warm sheets. Asher was sleeping in the bassinet next to me, bundled in the kind of hospital blanket that never quite looked clean, no matter how fresh it smelled. He had 10 fingers, 10 toes, and a grip that could silence my breath. I watched his chest rise and fall, steady, determined, like he had no idea how violently he had entered this world. Or maybe he did, and that's why he clung to sleep now as if reclaiming peace. Lyle came in quietly with a manila folder in one hand and a cup of ginger tea in the other. He placed the cup on the tray beside me and held up the folder. "Got the report," he said, voice low. "Everything's in here. Trauma-induced labor, submersion shock, elevated blood pressure from impact." I reached for it. "I'll read it later." "You already know what it says." "I know," I murmured. "But now we gather the rest." He nodded, sat down beside me, and took my hand like he always did when he didn't have the right words. Late that afternoon, as a nurse came in to check vitals, she handed me a small envelope with a flash drive tucked inside. "This was left for you at the desk," she said. "Someone from the hotel. They asked to keep it off record." I turned it over slowly. There was no note, just my name in careful handwriting. I waited until she left before I opened Lyle's laptop and inserted the drive. The screen flickered to life. It was security footage from the wedding. No sound, just silent camera feeds. There I was, standing near the pool. Vera walking toward me, Celine watching from the side, Caden passing by like he didn't notice anything. I saw it again, the point, the shove, the loss of balance. There was no ambiguity, no room for interpretation. My mother pushed me, and my brother walked away. "Celine?" She smiled. I didn't cry. For once, I didn't even feel shock. Just clarity. Cold, hard clarity that sank in deeper than the water had. That night, when the hallway lights dimmed and the machines beeped their soft, rhythmic warnings that life was still happening, my phone buzzed on the bedside tray. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. I saw it all. "I'll speak if needed. Please don't mention my name. Celine's cousin." Attached was a blurry photo taken just seconds after I hit the water. Vera stood at the edge of the pool, Caden beside her, Celine laughing with her hands over her mouth. The caption? "They laughed after you hit the water." I sat in silence for a long time. Then I opened my laptop again. "Ready to go public?" Lyle asked from the chair. "Not yet," I said. I created a folder, named it "For the Record." Inside, I added everything: the video, the photo, screenshots of Vera's donation page, Celine's school board profile, Caden's wedding announcement that listed him as self-made. They had built an empire on reputation. I had the cracks. I began drafting emails to the Homeowners Association where Vera ran fundraisers, to the board of donors she bragged about hosting wine nights with, to Celine's PTA circle where she had once referred to me as the complicated sister-in-law who didn't like kids. I didn't add commentary, just links, dates, timestamps, no threats, just truth. Truth, when unburdened by emotion, becomes a very different kind of weapon. Before I hit send, I reread every word. I wasn't being cruel. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was reclaiming my version of events, the one they tried to erase. Just after midnight, I hit send, all of them. Then I closed the laptop and leaned back against the pillow. My phone buzzed again. It was Vera. No text, just a public Facebook post. "Please pray for our family during this difficult time. Some things are not as they seem. There are stories being spread that deeply distort the truth." I showed it to Lyle. He chuckled without humor. "They're starting to sweat," I said. "They think you're still in recovery mode." I reached over and gently touched Asher's tiny hand. He gripped my finger in his sleep, firm and present. "No," I whispered. I'm in strategy mode. The living room was still. Outside, the late afternoon sun spilled across the sidewalk in soft amber tones. Asher was napping in the bassinet by the window, his tiny chest rising with each breath, while Lyle sat at the dining table sorting through unopened mail. I sat cross-legged on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling through Vera's Facebook post. Over 500 comments. Some people were offering prayers. Others asked vague questions. A few old acquaintances chimed in with empty empathy. But what caught my eye were the ones that didn't fit the script. I saw a video. What's going on? Is this about that wedding incident? Wasn't she in labor when it happened? The questions were growing bolder. Suspicion had crept into the comments, and no one from the family had responded. Not yet. I leaned forward slightly and whispered, "Let's clear the air." I wasn't afraid anymore. Vera, true to form, had already begun her counterattack. That morning, one of Lyle's co-workers forwarded a group email that had quietly made its rounds, Vera's version of the story. In it, she explained how I had been emotionally fragile due to a high-risk pregnancy, how I'd lost my balance during a difficult family moment, and how it was all being blown out of proportion by online drama and misunderstood footage. Celine had reposted it with a photo of her and Caden smiling at the altar, captioned with "Prayers welcome." I didn't respond. I took screenshots, names, timestamps, headers, every line cataloged and stored in the folder I now called The Reckoning. "This is all defamation," I told Lyle as I clicked through the attachments. "Documented, archived, time-stamped." He nodded, quietly handing me a flash drive from the folder we'd compiled days earlier. I knew what I had to do. By that evening, I had uploaded everything onto a private, password-protected site I'd built myself in college and never shut down. The homepage was simple. No drama, no colors, no fluff, just the facts, video footage from the poolside. Screenshots of Vera's internal emails and Facebook posts, medical records from the hospital, signed, sealed, notarized. The photo sent by Celine's cousin with the damning caption, "They laughed after she hit the water." A signed statement from the anonymous witness, verified by a notary friend of mine. I didn't post the link publicly. Instead, I sent it directly, one by one, to the HOA board that Vera chaired, to the private donor list she so proudly flaunted, to the brand managers who'd recently partnered with Caden's real estate podcast, to the PTA board where Celine had organized fundraisers for mothers in need. No hashtags, no status updates, no explanations. I let the content speak for itself. It took 23 minutes. The first email reply came from the vice chair of the HOA. "We've initiated a review of Vera's conduct. Thank you for bringing this to our attention." Then another from a major skincare brand that had just closed a deal with Celine. "Effective immediately, our partnership is suspended pending internal review." Within 24 hours, Vera had been removed from her donor network board. Caden's sponsorship with a lifestyle brand was terminated. Celine's seat on the PTA was frozen pending investigation. No one called to apologize. Not one of them tried to defend themselves. Even family friends, the ones who once praised their picture-perfect unity, went quiet online. The video had now been shared organically over 25,000 times. And me? I didn't post a word. I didn't need to. While the internet whispered, I was folding Asher's onesies in the nursery, humming quietly to myself. Lyle walked in, leaned against the doorway, and watched me for a moment. "You did it," he said. "And you never even raised your voice." I smiled faintly, smoothing out a tiny sock. "They taught me silence," I said. "I just used it better than they ever imagined." The quiet wasn't empty anymore. It wasn't something I endured. It was something I claimed. That night, as I closed my laptop and set it aside, a final message slid into my inbox. It was from Vera. No subject line. No greeting. Just one line. "You've destroyed this family." I didn't flinch. I didn't reply. I moved the message to trash and clicked delete. "No," I said softly. I just showed them what it really looked like. Morning light poured through the kitchen windows like soft honey, casting warm patches across the tile floor. I stood barefoot at the counter, sipping coffee while the kettle clicked behind me. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint chirp of birds outside, this was the sound of peace, finally earned, not gifted. In the living room, Asher was playing on the carpet, his curls bouncing as he babbled at a stuffed giraffe. He had just turned 1. His cheeks were fuller now, his legs steadier, his gaze sharper. Every day, he reminded me what resilience looked like in motion. Our new home was smaller, tucked in a quiet Savannah neighborhood where the neighbors knew your name but didn't pry. It wasn't flashy, but it breathed easier. No portraits on the walls I didn't choose. No rooms laced with someone else's expectations. The house smelled of cinnamon muffins, drying laundry, and the faint scent of baby lotion. It smelled like home. I set the mug down and walked to the hallway desk. Second drawer on the right. I hadn't opened it in months. Inside was the envelope I'd saved, creased, slightly yellowed from the night it got wet. I pulled out the ultrasound photo. The water had stained the edges. The top right corner was curled. But the shape, the tiny outline of Asher at 28 weeks, remained perfectly visible. That picture had been in my purse the night she pushed me, the night he arrived early, the night everything changed. I pressed the photo against my chest and closed my eyes. "He made it," I whispered. "We made it." The fear hadn't vanished. The trauma still floated somewhere in me like sediment at the bottom of a glass, but it no longer defined the taste of my life. Later that afternoon, Lyle set up a small folding table out in the backyard, nothing grand, just 3 chairs and a single candle. We'd baked cupcakes together, me scooping the batter, Asher tossing flour with glee, Lyle managing damage control with a smile. It was chaos, but it was ours. No balloons, no speeches, just laughter and frosting on our elbows. As the sun began to dip behind the trees, we gathered in the yard. Lyle lit the candle and sang a shaky, off-key version of Happy Birthday, while Asher clapped like he was conducting an orchestra. And then it happened. Asher let go of the chair he was holding and toddled 2 steps toward me. He reached out, wide-eyed, and said one word. "Mama." Not a babble. Not a fluke. Clear, intentional. "Mama." My knees hit the grass. I hadn't realized I was crying until Lyle crouched beside me, wiping a tear from my cheek. It wasn't his first word, but it was the one I had waited my entire life to hear. I pulled Asher close. "Thank you," I whispered into his hair, "for seeing me." That night, after Asher fell asleep and the candles flickered out, I sat at my desk again, not to work, just to write. A letter. "To my son," I wrote. "I broke the silence so you'd never have to. One day, you may not understand why your mother had to fight so quietly, so slowly, but know this. I did it so your voice would never be questioned, so your presence would never be debated." I folded the letter and tucked it inside a book. An old, faded copy of The Velveteen Rabbit. I wrote for 18th birthday on a sticky note and slid the book into the back of the closet. Some things don't need to be opened right away. As I turned off the light and made my way to bed, my phone vibrated once on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. No words, just a name. Caden. I stared at it for a moment, then turned the phone over, screen down. Some stories don't deserve a reply. The camera would have panned out if this were a movie. Just a woman, her child, and a garden growing wild in the backyard. Justice was never loud. It came in waves, soft, strong, and finally hers. Sometimes, the people who claim to love us the most are the ones who expect our silence to keep their image spotless. But silence doesn't protect, it isolates. What would you do if your own family turned their back when you needed them most? Have you ever been told you were too sensitive just for standing up for yourself? Share your story in the comments. We want to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, real-life family stories that speak the truths many are too afraid to tell.